Around him sat our usual regulars, the shop boys and navvies, already half-cut and impatient for the show to start. The sour tang of their sweat was sharp on the air. Beyond them were the tables for the better sort, the clerks with women worth the price of dinner and a show. The ushers weaved around them touting trinkets and sweetmeats, competing for the pennies in their pockets. Up above, the box where our proprietor often sat was in darkness. Crillick liked to keep an eye on what was happening in his theatre. But for the time being, he was away on business in France. Ellen, satisfied that she had the measure of the African, delivered her verdict. Selfish bastard, I reckon. Getting above himself. No call to be wearing a hat 3 minutes before the curtain. I was glad she was talking to me again. Things had been frosty between us for a couple of weeks ever since Crillick had made me the headline act and cut Ellen's solo from the bill to give me more stage time. It wasn't my fault, of course, and she knew it, but that didn't stop her being miffed. I suppose I would have been too in her position, seeing as how green I'd been when I started. I joined Crillick's company 9 months earlier, at New Year. Ellen had been one of the first people I'd met backstage. She was the only one to welcome me, to pass the time of day while I got to know my act. Straight away, the others hated me and didn't trouble to hide it. When I entered a room, they sniggered behind their hands. Just a drop or two of colour was enough to make me an outcast in their eyes. But Ellen, coming from Galway as she did, knew just enough of what it was to be different to see we could be allies. She'd been kind, and all she'd got in return for her troubles was to be demoted. She could ill afford it too, what with all her money being sent back home. I did my best to be as nice as I could, let her know I wasn't trying to displace her. We'd always had a laugh together. I didn't want us to feel like rivals. All this time, Ellen had been straining her eyes to look at the African. "You recognise him?" she said. "No. Why would I?" "I only asked." I shouldn't have snapped. It felt like all the Irish people in town knew one another, so she probably meant nothing by it. But I didn't know him, had never seen him before in my life. He wasn't one of mine, like she'd said. I had no one. But I didn't want me and Ellen to be on the outs anymore. I had enough battles to fight, so I squeezed her shoulder to say sorry. "He's unsettled me is all." "Then tell the boys to kick him out," Ellen said. I couldn't. I didn't know what it was about the African that threw me off, but I didn't want to see his evening spoilt, not on my account. Especially as I knew it must be my act that he'd come to see. Not just him, mind. When I'd started off at Crillick's, I'd been bottom of the bill, but now I was the main draw. Over time, I'd seen off Aldous the magician and Guillaume the mime artist, and now the great Amazonia was the headline act. I'd even been reviewed by the Illustrated London News, a savage spectacular, they'd said. Here is one Amazon that has carried all before her. I looked out at the African in the audience. If I performed well enough to fool him, Amazonia might remind him of his homeland. If he'd ventured into Crillick's on his own, he must have wanted to see her very badly. I felt an urge not to disappoint him. I wanted him to like my performance, to like me. I didn't know where it came from, this sudden feeling of kinship. There had been other blacks in the crowd before, of course, but this was the first time I'd felt drawn to one. I was half-caste, white as well as black. Moreover, I was London born and bred.